My first guest up is Nathan Jones. Now, Nathan, I got to ask you, I'm going to introduce you appropriately, but I got to ask you, man, are you the same Nathan Jones that was the WWF wrestler? Are you that guy? Do you know?
You know, when you ever Google Nathan Jones, you get that Australian wrestler.
Yeah.
He was from that movie Fearless, one of the best martial arts movie ever. But no, he's about like 3 feet taller than me and 2 feet wider. And
so he was convicted of 8 armed robberies between 1985 and 1987. So
I would not want to mess with that guy.
I know. I've seen his picture. The guy is huge. And Nathan Jones I consider him to be a dear friend of mine. I met him several years ago, and we've just hit it off. And but let me tell you who he is. First of all, he serves as evangelist and web minister, and I'm going to tell you what that is in a moment, for Lamb and Lion Ministries out in McKinney, Texas, right outside of Dallas. He's also the co-host of the mega popular Christ in Prophecy television. That television show is aired on 7 Christian networks and has access to over 80 million homes worldwide, and he's co-host of that. Nathan also, every day on the internet, he writes about Bible prophecy on the Christ and Prophecy Journal blog, and you can, by the way, their website is lamblion.com. lamblion.com. But the blog, the Christ and Prophecy Journal blog, is lamblion.us. So you can get there and you can read Nathan's daily writings and commentaries and opining on prophecy, etc., discussing the return of Christ and the prophetic times in which we live. Also on the Prophecy Facebook group there, and I'll get him to tell you more to how to get in contact with him there. But listen, he produces end-time video messages. He's interviewed on radio programs coast to coast. He speaks at conferences and churches and answers Bible-related questions sent in from all over the world. And of course, Nathan Jones serves with and serves under the esteemed Dr. David Reagan, a dear, dear friend of mine and known around the world for 40 years as an extremely popular prophecy conference speaker, and he's also the founder of Lamb Lion Ministries and the host of Christ in Prophecy Television. Nathan Jones, my good friend, God bless you. Thanks for being on Freedom Friday today.
Well, thank you for having me, Carl. It is a great blessing. I'm always excited to hear you preach and teach. Folks know that, Carl, you've been on our conferences and quite a number of our television shows, and it's always a blessing.
And listen, I'm going to say this before we get into this, Nathan. First of all, I really do appreciate the fact that you guys have been so good to me. And yes, I have been honored and blessed to be on Christ in Prophecy Television. I don't know, 4 or 5 episodes, I guess. I'm not sure. And just enjoyed them. And, you know, I have been blessed because of the books I've written and the ministry that I've been in for so long, Nathan. I've been on, TBN and TCT Network and the Dove Network and Atlanta Live. But I'm telling you, and I know the other people are listening, and I'm not dissing them. I love all of that radio and television work. I absolutely do, especially when I get to talk about the things of God. But my favorite is coming to the studios in McKinney, Texas for Christ in Prophecy Television. We have a great time. We all get along well. We're all on the same page, and it seems to go so smoothly, and I just thoroughly enjoy those experiences when I'm out there with you.
Well, thank you, Carl. We just love having you out. We feel like you're part of the family. Matter of fact, it's a small world. Yesterday we had, as our guest on Christ in Prophecy, we filmed 2 episodes with Jonathan Cahn.
Oh, yeah.
And what a small world. So Jonathan says hello.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. And, of course, he's in the movie of my rabbi book, and he's quoted in my book and helped me with that. And he's
Matter of fact,
great guy.
the director of your movie, George, was also there.
George Escobar.
So, yeah.
Was he really?
He was. He was doing a documentary on his life. And so they were filming him. Poor guy couldn't even walk in the bathroom or anything without a film crew following him around.
Bless his heart. Hey, isn't George a great guy?
He is a great guy.
And Jonathan as well. And I had the pleasure of being in Jonathan's church and in his home with him as we filmed some of that. So, it is a small world. That is amazing, Nathan.
Close,
excuse me.
Close, yeah.
Jonathan Jones. Nathan Jones. No, that is amazing. I didn't know that. Well, anyway, listen, let's get to you and this ministry. So lamblion.com, Lamb Lion Ministries, and Christ in Prophecy Television, all of that, mega popular. And you guys put on a big prophecy conference every year. You've got one coming up in July again this year. Tell folks about it. Let's go ahead and advertise because several thousand people are involved in that one way or the other. As a matter of fact, the last one you guys did, how many live streams were there? 10,000, 16,000, something like that?
Well, it's hard to engage when you look at statistics because you never know, someone's doing repeats and stuff like that. But we were able to distinguish that we had 6,000 individual streams. We know that some churches were using those streams to show the conference at their churches. So you don't know how many behind the streams,
Right,
But
right.
we knew we had 6,000 on top of the 1,000 we had at the conference. So
Right.
we're saying about 7,000 to 10,000 people were able to attend our conference. And that's a technology that we've only been using the last 2 years to stream our conferences.
Yeah.
A few years back, Billy Graham had said that the last crusade he did was broadcast all over the internet and radio, and he said he reached more people in that crusade than any of the crusades totaled together before that crusade. So that is the power of technology, and we like to utilize that communication technology to, as the purpose of Lamb and Lion Ministries is to share the good news of Jesus Christ and the message of his soon return. It was founded 1980 by Dr. David Reagan, and we've been there now 35 years proclaiming the gospel all over the world.
Wow. That is amazing. And you mentioned that technology, and I love thinking about this and speculating about it. I love studying it. I love talking about it. I love preaching about it. But I want you to share your knowledge and your opinion. So do you think this amazing technology we have right now, do you think it was foreseen by the prophets of old? Do you think that the Bible foretold, prophesied about some of the technologies that we are using now and that they would be used to take the gospel to the ends of the earth?
Well, what's amazing about the Bible is 31% of the Bible is prophecy.
Yep.
God wants us to know what's going to happen in the end. Now, he might be giving us, say, 75 pieces of a 100-piece puzzle. 25 pieces are missing, and until they're fulfilled and he gives them to us, we don't know the whole picture, so there's some guesswork involved. But there's a lot of clear verses in the Bible that tell us how we know that Jesus is coming soon. One of the ones that's been an inspiration for me throughout all my life, from Bible college back in the 90s to today, is Matthew 24:14.
Thank you. I love that.
Oh, isn't it great? It says, and this gospel of the kingdom will be preached in the whole world as a testimony to all nations, and then the end will come.
That's right.
And that has been a driving force for me. I went to Bible college in the early 90s. The internet hadn't really even kicked off yet. Matter of fact, I was a technological dinosaur. My senior year, the professor forced us to use a computer to write our last paper, so it was like having two projects in one. And then when I got out of Bible school, I worked for an international ministry, a church planning ministry, and I was assigned to the IT director. And I remember him talking about motherboards once, and I asked him, is that some kind of keyboard or something? and they laughed at me. So I was a technological illiterate. So for years that I worked there, the 2 years, my wife and I, we really wanted to get to the mission field. We wanted to share the gospel with street children down in Brazil. And the Canada director came and said, well, we'd like you to go, but we think you need some real-world experience before you go out.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay. So I left that job, and I went looking for another job. And I quickly discovered that Bible degrees do not get you jobs.
Yeah, no, they generally don't.
No, not in the secular field, no. So I went back to school. I went to tech school to learn programming and mainframe programming. And sitting next to me was probably the nerdiest 18-year-old I ever met. He was working on a Powerpuff Girl website. And I'm like, you can add pictures to your programming? He got me into web development. And I had a real love for designing websites and e-commerce packages and all. And I went to work for a large ISP on the East Coast, designing websites for different companies and all. And then it just got to me. I was like, Lord, something is missing. I went to school to share the gospel with people so that they wouldn't be lost and go to hell. And the Lord led me to a mega church. It was, at the time, the biggest church in the country, Southeast Christian Church in Louisville, Kentucky.
Wow.
And there I was their web architect for 6 years.
Wow.
And then
the light bulb came on.
Yeah, because I could reach people through the internet. Now, churches tend to be focused more on their own congregation, so the church never caught on to the vision of going outside of their four walls until Dr. David Reagan showed up to do a 4-week conference on Bible prophecy.
Wow.
And he had, through a mutual friend, had said, hey, I'm looking for a guy to turn my website into a web ministry.
Right.
And that was my passion. So it worked for now a little over 7 years. I've been here at Lamb and Lion Ministries, and I've been trying to live out Matthew 24:14 to preach the gospel to the whole world. And, we live in a time now where, because of the communication technology we have, we can begin reaching the whole world for Jesus
Oh,
Christ.
absolutely. Absolutely. Nathan Jones is the web minister and evangelist for Lamb Lion Ministries, and right outside Dallas, Texas. And of course, he's the co-host of this mega popular Christ in Prophecy television. Those of you that watch the Christian television cable networks, you've seen Christ in Prophecy before. Dr. David Reagan and Nathan Jones, the co-host. And I've been honored to be on that show several times. But these guys, they're viewed by many, many, many millions around the world. And they have a huge ministry. Nathan, I'm just honored that you're with us today.
Again, the honor's all mine. Thanks for having me on, Carl.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. And so I do want to talk about this web ministry because there are a lot of people listening to us that, maybe not to the degree that you felt the calling and you went on to Bible college and got, degrees in theology and then you went back to school and got degrees in programming and computer and stuff. But still, the light bulb came on in your head and you said, look, I can take my love for Christ, my understanding of the Word, all of the knowledge that God has given me, and I can use the technology we have today and we can get the gospel out. And so give a little encouragement to people how they can be web ministers, maybe at a much smaller scale, open a Facebook page, do something. I mean, tell people how to kind of just really reach the world for Christ using that technology.
Well, certainly. It's amazing how much technology has been integrated into our lives. Just 10 years ago, when I talked about web ministry, and I used to give leadership conference seminars on helping churches and parachurch organizations get more on the internet, it was still kind of something that was being grasped, and not all the common men had it, and most people, the technology kind of scared them. It was something you hired somebody to do. And Carl, it's just amazing, especially with the mobile technology we have today, how now technology isn't just something that's apart from us, it is part of us.
Yeah.
People's cell phones seem grafted onto their hand. We check our iPad constantly, emails, we're tweeting and texting, and we're doing all this stuff, and it all of a sudden has become that people are no longer just using technology. Technology has become a way of life.
Yeah.
And so my definition of web minister has changed over the years, too, to not something that other people are or that churches hire or organizations hire to do. It is something of who everybody is.
Thank you.
And when everybody's that way, it's a natural expression of who we are. If you believe in Jesus Christ as your Savior, then it's a natural expression to talk about Him. And where are you going to talk about Him? You're going to talk about Him in the ways you talk to people, through the Internet, through social media, through like Facebook and Twitter and Instagram, which is real popular amongst teens now. And so it just becomes an outreach for us. So you know what, Carl? I think we've all become web ministers if we love Jesus Christ and we share the gospel.
Yeah, that's a good word, Nathan. That's right. And I want to encourage our listeners, you can be a web minister as well, and it can be as small as you want, or it can be as big as you're willing to invest yourself in it. Hey, listen, speaking about all this technology, do you see in Daniel chapter 12 the same kind of things I have seen? And, Matthew 24, we're going to talk about that a moment. You raised that a second ago. But, Daniel chapter 12, verse 4 especially, and right around that area, there's a pretty astounding statement made there. Do you have an opinion on that?
Oh, I certainly have an opinion on that, because the Bible is not only packed with technology. It's not some primitive book where, people are grunting and living in caves and dragging their wives by the hair. There is tons of technology in the Bible because God is the creator of all things, and because He's the creator of all things, He dispenses knowledge and we learn. And we learn through different prophecies in the Bible that as we get, always it points to the end times. There's so many indicators as we get to the end of this age before Jesus returns that certain technologies would come up to help propagate the gospel. And one of them, like you said, is Daniel 12:4. And it reads, "But you, Daniel, shut up the words and seal the book until the time of the end, the end time. Many shall run to and fro, and knowledge shall increase."
Right.
Now, Daniel was given by this angel all this information about the times leading up to Jesus' return. And Daniel, he was confused. This was like 500 years or 500 or so before Jesus came. So 2,500 years ago, he's getting all this information. He's scratching his head. He's like, what does all this mean? And the angel said, you can't understand it. It's beyond you. But when we get to the end times, then there's two things that will happen. One, people will run to and fro. Travel will increase greatly. And two, knowledge. People's knowledge will increase greatly. And I don't know about you, but you only have to think about where we were 100 years ago to see how much, one, transportation has increased, and two, how much knowledge has increased.
It's been exponential, Nathan. I mean, 100 years ago, we were riding horses and buggies. And then, the rudimentary car and the train came along. Next thing you know, it's trains, planes, and automobiles, and then spaceships and space shuttles, and now I mean, now, I get on an airplane, go anywhere in the world within 12 hours almost. I can be almost anywhere in the world. It's absolutely astounding. And
you're not kidding. Back in the 1800s, when Mark Twain went to Israel, it took him 3 months by steamer boat.
See?
Today, we complain that they take 12 hours to fly over there.
I know. He's, it's such a long flight. Yeah, I was thinking the other day, I told you that Pat Boone with TBN called me up and wanted me to come out there to California to do a show. Okay, great. And so I got my plane tickets. I'm on the East Coast. He wants me to come to the West Coast, and they're going to film that night. So I get on the plane that morning, and I'm going, and 2 hours from here to Dallas, and then 3 hours from Dallas to California. Coming back, it was quicker because of the tailwinds, but going out about 5 hours of flight. And I can remember thinking, man, this has been a long day. And then I thought, the pioneers that left the East Coast to go to California, most of them never came back. Most of them didn't survive. It took months and months and months or years to get there, and it took me 5 hours.
Yeah, and we complain about it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I did.
Most people, when we talk about knowledge, there was a Time magazine that came out years ago, and it had an article in it that talked about how back just 100 years ago, the most information that people gained in a lifetime was reading one Sunday edition of Time magazine.
Right.
And now we read almost that much in a day or two, just through the constant checking of the news, both on television and at mobile and the internet. It's all there, and we're constantly learning. Now, is our wisdom increasing with that? I would argue not.
Yeah,
but
me too.
Certainly, the fulfillment of Daniel 12:4, we are having more technology for running to and fro, and more technology for increasing knowledge. Yeah. And I believe that is a sign of the end times that points to Jesus' soon return.